pony. One was the finest fighter plane in World War.
And now from Mountain Bike Central in Marin County, California, here's Brian Drebber.
Hello and welcome to the Mountain Bike World Cup, a two-wheeled version of skiing's top prize. 9 races across 2 continents to determine the season's best mountain bike racer, man and woman. First Europe, then North America, then back to Europe for the season finale. And we're just about set to bring you all that action, but first, let me introduce our expert. He's Tim Blumenthal, the mountain bike editor of Bicycling Magazine. Tim, this is a first-year series. What is it? What does it mean to the sport and to its top racers?
Brian, what it means more than anything else is prestige. This is nearly global exposure for a very young sport, and with it comes a lot of prize money, nearly $250,000.
What are some of the challenges that the racers will face?
Just about everything imaginable in the sport of mountain biking, from seaside salt to the high mountains of the Rockies, even a city park in Berlin for the all-important final.
We're just about set to begin. The Mountain Bike World Cup is underway.
Some 12,000 fans have gathered in a park in the northeast section of Old West Berlin on a course that borders the infamous no man's land that once divided East and West Germany. They are set for the first ever World Cup finale. Is this course worthy of the competition, Tim Blumenthal?
Brian, there are no mountains here, but the organizers have tried to squeeze every element of mountain biking into this park-like setting.
Well, we're about set to begin with the grand finale of the World Cup of mountain biking. Stay with us. That will cap this first ever World Cup of mountain biking, but before they start, we're going to take a look back at the races that began beginning of the season, Bassano del Grappa, Italy.
There were 3 events in Europe, then the whole circuit moved to North America where there were 4 races, and then back to Europe for 1 race in Switzerland and the all-important final in Berlin. This was the opener in Bassano del Grappa, Italy. The piazza and the town square, probably a perfect traditional setting for mountain biking, a new sport in an old environment.
But the Italian fans turning out in great numbers. Cycling is big in Europe and especially in Italy.
And Julie Furtado is big everywhere, as she proved last year in winning the World Championship. And no sooner does the World Cup begin, Julie Furtado sets off alone. She's ahead. That's Sarah Ballantyne in second, Regina Stiefel in third place, the German.
The Europeans making inroads into mountain biking, and Regina Stiefel, the 25-year-old German, sort of personifies that competition among the Europeans. But it's the Americans that emerge the winner, with Julie Furtado wearing the rainbow jersey of world champion, crossing the finish line to score the first win of the season.
Perfect way to start her season. Sarah Ballantyne, well, second place just as she was in the World Championships back in Durango.
Second stop on the tour. We move to France, another hotbed of cycling, and the tricolor looking over the field, and a leader jersey on the back of Julie Furtado, replacing her rainbow with that of the leader in the series.
Sarah Ballantyne, she knows it's going to be a very long season. She has plenty of time, 8 more races. But still, she's seen how the Europeans are doing. Regina Stiefel, she's the sister of Susie Buchweiser, who was one of the top Europeans on the circuit last year.
A lot of nerves on the starting line, but nevertheless, when the gun fires, it is time to go. And these bullet starts here, it's very important to get to the front in a mountain bike event.
Courses typically narrow down to single track, tight, twisty courses where if you're behind, you just waste too much energy and time trying to get ahead. This time, Sarah Ballantyne is riding much, much stronger, but Julie Furtado still the leader. She's ahead. Regina Stiefel, the same 3 characters that we saw in the first race. They're battling. And just like last time, Julie Furtado looking pretty comfortable, Brian.
Making it look easy with the leader jersey on her back. She's 2 for 2 in the World Cup of mountain biking.
And the series is moved on to the Netherlands, and it seems that the Americans have already established a strong tone for this year's series. But the Americans aren't here in Groesbeck. Julie Furtado is back in Colorado taking final exams at the University of Colorado. and many of the other top Americans have decided to return home. This is primarily a European field, Brian.
It's hard to imagine that they would have been able to find a mountain in Netherlands, which is fairly flat, but Jackie Phelan, a legend in the sport of mountain biking, time to talk to the camera while she climbs.
Well, she's still very competitive after so many years at the top, but she won't be able to stay with Regina Stiefel, who recognizes an opportunity with the Americans missing from this field. This is her chance to get those World Cup points.
The Europeans set to make their mark on the World Cup Tour for the first time with a top spot finish here. Regina Stiefel seems to be the one that will inherit the win, and indeed she does, taking the third stop in the Netherlands.
And those 16 points put her into the overall lead. Furtado back in school, Ballantyne back in the States, Stiefel the leader. And now the series has moved to North America, to Mont Saint Anne, Quebec.
And another ski resort at Mont Saint Anne in French-speaking Quebec, Canada. The women are off and running, and familiar faces at the front once again, with Sarah Ballantyne setting the pace.
This time, Ballantyne needs to do something. She finished second to Furtado in the first two World Cup stops and second to Furtado in the World Championships last year. This is North America. She's perhaps a little bit more comfortable, and she's in fact taken the lead after Furtado has flatted. But Ballantyne doesn't look that great. She's near the end. Looks like she's going to hold on. In fact, she does. She wins Mont Saint Anne, a crucial 16 points to push her back up into the standings.
So with Sarah Ballantyne once again in contention, we move to Traverse City, Michigan, and Sugarloaf Mountain in the sandy hills of Michigan in the upper Midwest.
The temperature, Brian, is 97 degrees, and the sand is absolutely miserable. But it doesn't bother Julie Furtado. She doesn't bog down. She keeps pedaling, and she just perseveres, and she builds a tremendous lead. 7, 8, it goes to 9 minutes, and Sarah Ballantyne can do absolutely nothing. This is Julie Furtado's day.
A former ski racer, she likes these ski resorts, even if they are on a sand hill in the middle of the summertime. Julie Furtado back in control in the driver's seat on the World Cup of mountain biking.
That's 3 out of 4 in the races that she's entered, but she doesn't have a big lead in the World Cup. Regina Stiefel is just 3 points behind. Still plenty of races to go.
Next stop on the tour, round 6. Mammoth Lakes and kindly old Mammoth Mountain that presided over 3 unofficial world championships now becomes the site of a World Cup. Little trouble off the starting line, but not for Ruthie Mathis. Second in the world on the road, third in the world in mountain biking last year. She is in the driver's seat here at Mammoth Mountain.
And this is her first World Cup mountain biking of the year. And she's not really someone that Julie Furtado or Sarah Ballantyne has had to worry about. She's a wrinkle in their plans, and she's such a great climber, so well suited to the severe elevation changes of Mammoth. And as you can see, she's taken the lead from Sarah Ballantyne. Meanwhile, Julie Furtado is having a terrible day. She's back in 8th place, not going forward. And that's Ruthie Mathis coming to the finish line, an upset winner in this World Cup stop, a new contender perhaps in the overall World Cup.
A third ski resort and the 7th stop on the World Cup Tour takes us to Park City, Utah on the Deer Valley Resort, a site familiar to skiers and the home of the U.S. ski team.
And this course has more single track. That's Sarah Ballantyne. Oh, and she's down and off the course. She's wearing the leader's jersey in the Grundig World Cup, and that is a big blow on this narrow, difficult circuit. Julie Furtado knows what's happened. She is pushing ahead forward into the lead. She's out on the open section of the course. That's very, very steep. Many racers will walk. That's Ruthie Mathis just behind. Indeed, early in the race, Mathis is off her bike.
Sarah Ballantyne showing the effects of the tumble that she took earlier, trying to get after the leaders here as she wears the leader jersey on the World Cup Tour.
But Julie Furtado has the victory. Her 4th in 5 starts in this year's World Cup.
Sarah Ballantyne retains her overall lead, but just barely in Chateau-d'Ex, Switzerland. They use an unusual Le Mans-style automobile racing start. Julie Furtado, the world champion, on the right in the rainbow shirt, and Sarah Ballantyne out to the early lead in that blue leader's jersey.
And once out of town, the course turns back to traditional single track, with Sylvie First leading Sarah Ballantyne in the blue leader's jersey, Julie Furtado just behind. An unusual running section, followed by a very, very steep side hill. That's Alison Sidor of Canada, a new power force in international mountain biking.
Alison Seidor winning a bronze medal in the World Road Championship just 1 week before this mountain bike. And she takes the victory here in Chateau d'Ex, Switzerland, the penultimate stop on the Mountain Bike World Cup Tour for 1991.
Sarah Ballantyne grits it out for second place. She lost the lead on the last lap, and there's a sprint for third. That's Julie Furtado on the left. Sylvie First on the right. First gets it.
Julie Furtado in control atop the leaderboard going into the Berlin final, but with double points at stake. She could lose it all in that final in Berlin. Stay with us. The women's start is coming right up. Mountain Bike World Cup when we come back. Germany, a unified Germany plays host to this first ever World Cup final. The women's race is set to begin. 5.5 kilometers per lap, and 4 women have a chance to take the title from Julie Furtado.
This course is designed primarily for spectators. It's an improbable setting for a big World Cup final, but the organizers have managed to weave an intricate series of turns back and forth on a hillside, one of the only hills around, in fact.
Well, we see the blue leader jersey of Julie Furtado on the left. We also see the field of riders that includes Regina Stiefel, and the German hometown crowd has got to be cheering for her. She has a mathematical chance of taking the World Cup title with a good performance here today.
You know, if you can't see the grassy surface, you might think this was pavement, Brian.
Up the first climb, the whole field pretty much intact. The stars at the front, and a big crowd looking on, although they've scattered themselves out around this 5.5 kilometer course. There's Regina Stiefel of Germany, the home favorite.
And she has a lot to gain here with the double points. She could easily jump up from third. Sarah Ballantyne just behind. She too knows that she can only win this race from the front, and she needs to wrestle back that jersey from Julie Furtado, who's sitting just behind there in the blue jersey with the white helmet.
Only one climb of the course so far, and already a small group has detached itself. Regina Stiefel out front, Sarah Ballantyne sitting in second spot, and they are really moving on this very hard-packed, slightly grassy section of the course, and it's very narrow, Tim. Not much of a chance to pass.
It's pretty smooth, though, Brian, and now finally they're entering the one technical section of the course where it narrows down with a twisty left-hand turn. You couldn't pass in here. It's a good thing that the course has at least this to test the riders.
Sarah Ballantyne has moved out into control, doesn't want to be riding in the dust of any of the riders ahead of her, so she has gone out in front. Regina Stiefel marking her in second spot as one by one the riders pick their way down the sandy section, but now they're on to this flat, hard grass section. Still Ballantyne in the lead.
Yeah, it looks almost like a road, Brian. It has a bizarre look for a mountain bike course, but it seems to suit both Sarah Ballantyne and Regina Stiefel just fine. They have moved ahead.
Swapping the lead back and forth, not letting one another get away, but they have managed to emerge out of the field of riders, and it seems to be a two-woman race at this point.
Yeah, the question is, Brian, where is Julie Furtado? And now Sarah Ballantyne has moved ahead alone. She's built a gap. This is a great position to be in on a course with very few obstacles or pitfalls. That's Susan DiMattei. She's missed much of the season with injury, but in past years she's one of the top Americans. And there's the middle of Berlin out in the distance.
Julie Furtado struggling on this course. Perhaps, ironically enough, it isn't difficult enough for the world champion. And there she is, struggling in third spot right now. Not a likely place for the World Cup leader.
Furtado has a lot of power. One might think that she might be able to come forward.
This is really a power rider's course because it does lack the technical difficulty that some of the courses have in the United States.
And look at that. It looks just like a ski hill, side by side. Susan DiMattei on the left, Sarah Ballantyne on the right. Two veterans of international mountain bike competition, both Americans. They are in the lead here.
So the hometown crowd has not been able to bring Regina Stiefel to the front. Susie Buchweiser, one of the first of the Europeans to make a dent in mountain biking. She came to the United States a few years ago and has been a fixture on the tour ever since.
DiMattei moving into the lead. She really hasn't been in this position all season, and she's looking very smooth, completely recovered from her injuries. Sarah Ballantyne just behind. She's probably calculating now exactly how many points she needs to win the overall title.
Well, she has a cyclo-computer on her handlebar, but it isn't the kind she needs to do math. It'll simply tell her how far she's been and how far she has to go. 6 laps on a 5.5-kilometer course, but she has no doubt in her mind calculated that if she can stay away from Julie Furtado, the World Cup title will be hers.
And it seems to be a back-and-forth match between Susan Di Mattei and Sarah Ballantyne. Meanwhile, behind, look at the determination on Julie Furtado's face.
Can the world champion fight her way back to the front? The women's finish coming up. World Cup finale. Here are 3rd and 4th place riders, 2 relative newcomers to the sport of mountain biking, Tim.
That's Chantal Delcourt, a former runner, and Regina Stiefel. But up ahead, that's where the real battle is, and it's Sarah Ballantyne of Specialized. She is leading. She's been going back and forth, fighting with Susan Di Mattei for the lead.
And it looks like she has attacked and gained an advantage here as they go into the closing few yards of this course. Sarah Ballantyne in control. Here's Sylvia First, who is 5th. And way back behind her is Julie Furtado, who came into this race as the leader, but it looks like she is going to lose the title with a 6th place finish here at this point anyway. And downhill sprint coming up. Susan Di Mattei has rejoined Sarah Ballantyne, and it is a sprint to the line. Di Mattei on the right, Sarah Ballantyne on the left, in that order as they cross the line. Sarah Ballantyne finishing 2nd, but has to know that the title can be hers if Julie Furtado stays in 6th spot. Here is Chantal Delcourt to finish up 3rd for the former runner.
That finish for 1st place was really unusual. I've never seen a sprint like that. Fast and open, and probably maybe even 35 miles per hour. But the key thing is Sarah Ballantyne, 2nd place.
Finishing 2nd, but taking the overall prize in the World Cup. Susan Di Mattei getting a victory, but it is Sarah Ballantyne's day here in Germany, taking the overall title ahead of Julie Furtado, who finished 6th in the race, Regina Stiefel, and Sylvia First of Switzerland, Chantal Delcourt of Switzerland also. And there is the deserving World Cup champion, Sarah Ballantyne of the United States.
Julie Furtado, she won 4 World Cup stops, but not the series.
So Sarah Ballantyne loses the battle but wins the war by finishing 2nd in the finale in Berlin. She clinches the title of World Cup champion. A surprise, Tim Blumenthal?
Absolutely, Brian. Julie Furtado had seemed almost invincible. She won 4 of the first 5 World Cups. But Ballantyne hung in there, waited for that double points final in Berlin, and she pounced, and she got the title.
Now let's take a look at the men's side. This is a sport born in the USA, but the Europeans have made great inroads in the sport of mountain biking. Is this the year that perhaps they're going to break through with a title?
Well, Brian, I still give the edge slightly to the Americans. I think they're better climbers, and they have more experience. But with so many races in this series in Europe, and some of them flat, maybe it's the year for the Europeans to come on and equalize.
A couple of favorites. Give us some names to watch for.
I'll say Ned Overend, the defending world champion, John Tomac, and Tim Gould of England.
Let's get right to the action. The men's mountain bike World Cup is also set to begin.
Men's cross-country final getting set to begin, and like the women's race, it will end here in Berlin, Germany, but it started so long ago at the beginning of the season in Bassano del Grappa, Italy.
The men's fields, Brian, were very large, an average of 130. Sometimes they even had to have qualifying to get it down to that level. Here's John Tomac. He's taking a break from road racing. He'd been preoccupied with that and Paris-Roubaix and the tough races of Europe all spring.
Ned Overend, the defending world champion, the grand old man of mountain biking that seems to get younger every year.
And as always, a fast start is important. But in Bassano del Grappa, they controlled the start to make it a ceremonial event across a beautiful bridge over the river and out of town. And then the racing began with John Tomac asserting himself right away.
A Tomac attack right from the gun as the Raleigh rider heads out onto what is a very technical and difficult course. And like the women, the men had their problems.
And that's Tim Gould, who was in contention for a medal in last year's World Championship. Leading John Tomac, Mike Closer, a downhill medalist in the 90 Worlds. This is fast and furious action, and Tim Gold has escaped. He's going to get the first victory for Europe in the first stop, and that's very significant in this World Cup.
So the Europeans throw down the gauntlet after the first stop of the World Cup Tour. Joined on the podium by Americans, but it was Tim Gould of Great Britain who picked up the first place prize. Moving on to France now, second stop in the Tour, and once again, a galloping herd heading away from the starting line, but not for long.
This course, very, very technical, loose rock and loose dirt. You can barely stand, let alone ride a bike. And again, it's John Tomac. He flatted in the first race, otherwise he might have won. This time he's aggressive at the front, setting a lead. And that's Mike Closer, locking his back wheel. That's all he can do to get down the hill like that. This is a very difficult course. Using the rear wheel like a rudder and steering his way down the course with the back tire instead of the front one. Some choose to run instead. This is one of the beauties of this mountain bike World Cup. So many different elements come into play, and this time John Tomac foils them all. He gets the victory, no mechanical problems, all the power. Victory for John Tomac in round two. A very short road sprint using the road handlebars. Second stop, and John Tomac looking good. That's Tom Rogers, another American. 1-2 in France for the Americans. A small U.S. contingent on this course, Tim, that was the least technical, the least like a mountain bike course of any of them. When I look at this course, Brian, I think of one thing, cyclocross. And of course, there's a cyclocrosser, Peter Rick. He's of Czechoslovakia. He would be just as comfortable on this course riding a cyclocross bike, which is kind of like a road bike. A subtle difference between cyclocross and mountain biking. Cyclocross sort of 10-speed racing off-road. But mountain biking much more technical and difficult here on this very non-demanding course, at least in terms of mountain biking skills. It is the Europeans who are going to the front. And Peter Rick takes the victory, 26 points for Carrera, for Czechoslovakia, and for the Europeans. They've really done well. They've added to their points total while the Americans were back in the States. So perhaps a little bit of a hollow victory here for the European riders, as many of the top Americans stayed home. But that would soon change as Gerhard Zedrobalek, an Austrian rider, sits atop the standings. No Americans to be found until we get down to 5th place. And then the World Cup moved to Mont Saint Anne, Quebec, right along the St. Lawrence River. And this is a ski resort, a new venue, a place where the Americans feel more comfortable. And as expected, the American contingent back to full strength. And on this very difficult and technical course, it's off the bike one way or another, sometimes on purpose and sometimes not. And a lead group of two, Henrik Dernies of Denmark and Darrell Price of the United States. They're ahead. Others can't manage the course as well. Darrell Price moving into the lead. Wow, a celebration and a victory. Darrell Price, Specialized USA. Moving on to Traverse City, Michigan, and the shadow of Sugarloaf Mountain and this sandy, hot, almost desert-like conditions for a large field of riders as the Mountain Bike World Cup hits the USA. And it may be hard to believe, but this is the leader of this race, Rishi Grewal, and it shows what the heat and the sand have done to all these racers. That's Henrik Dernies. He is in death mode. These riders having a tough time with the weather. Very difficult course, very difficult conditions. And as you said, it's hard to believe that a man that looks this bad is actually one of the front runners. Well, actually, Gerhard Zdrobalek needs to come to the United States and score points to add to the points that he already picked up in Europe. And he's doing fairly well here. He looks a little bit better than most. 6th place, that's good points. Could even keep him in the overall lead in the World Cup. Ned Overend also looking like he is having some difficulty with the conditions. Nevertheless, fighting his way along, but it is Rishi Grewal who out-survives everybody, I think it's fair to say, to pick up the points in Traverse City. 97 degrees, 26 points for Grewal. A more familiar stop on the mountain bike tour, Mammoth Mountain. one of the fastest starts you'll ever see. And from that start, it narrows into single track, and Dave Wiens of Colorado pushes to the front. John Tomac in second place. These are the open ski slopes of Mammoth Mountain, a great place for a battle. And this year, they're a little bit more manageable because of lots of rain in the spring.
Ned Overend having mechanical difficulties on this day, taking him out of contention, but if anyone can fight back on a course like this, it is the world champion. Rishi Grewal, looking back, is just plain having a bad day.
David Wiens, a couple victories in 1990. This is his first World Cup win in 91, and it pushes him up to 5th place in the overall standings. Rishi Grewal, he suffered, but still he moves into the overall World Cup lead with 90 points. Now suddenly 3 Americans out of the top 5.
And the final U.S. stop on the World Cup Tour takes to Park City, Utah. And the large field heading out after that blue leader's jersey that's on the back of Rishi Grewal. But no hesitation on the part of John Tomac. He's in his element on this tough single track. A former BMX racer, turned road racer, turned mountain bike racer. He is going after it.
Tomac flatted, and Rishi Grewal moves into the overall lead. But then Grewal flatted, and Ned Overend moved into the overall lead. For the first time this season, Ned Overend is poised to take a World Cup victory, doing it in the Rocky Mountains to the cheers of his American crowd, and he does it.
Finally, in Chateau d'Aix, Switzerland, the men also getting ready for this unusual Le Mans-style start. Their bikes are on the other side of the road. They run over, grab their bikes, and adding to what would be an already confused start, they have to put this wrinkle in there just for the entertainment of the crowd. I think the riders enjoyed it too.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they really enjoy this, Brian. That's pretty rocky in there. Look at this bridge. I've never seen anything like that in a mountain bike course. Unique elements. That's what makes the World Cup Series so special. And look at this side hill. And John Tomac with his foot out of the pedals. You won't see that very often. It says a lot about how tough this course is.
Tim Gould, winner of the first stop on the World Cup Tour, has come back with a vengeance here on this next to last stop for the 91 season.
And there's Mike Closer, one of the best Americans. And he simply can't manage that side hill. Even the best fall when the course is tough.
So Tim Gould with bookend victories on the first stop and the 8th, leading up to the 9th and final, the double points race in Berlin. So the standings are David Wiens atop, USA's Rishi Grewal, Mike Closer sitting in 2nd and 3rd, followed by the Europeans with only one more race to go. But 10 men, unbelievably enough, have a shot at the World Cup title in Berlin. The real men of mountain biking are ready to get it on when we come back. Tim Blumenthal with you here. 10 laps, 55 kilometers, 33 miles of racing for this large and very elite field in a men's mountain bike World Cup final.
And this course is really unusual for mountain biking. Not much climbing, very compact, lots of short turns, but smooth. It's almost like a golf course. It's unlike anything else they'll see all year.
And almost like a criterium, it looks like it's very important to be at the front, at the start, first charge up the hill, and it looks like who's who in mountain biking. They're all at the front.
This course was designed for spectators, and the crowd is thickened because they realize this is the biggest show of elite mountain biking all year, and look at that spectacle.
Is the race going to be long enough for some of these fellows who are getting a poor start to fight their way back to the front?
I would say yes, Brian, because
hi everybody.
Pretty good chances like right here to pass if you have the strength. But the speed is so high, this is really, they're probably going about 20 miles per hour.
Looks like a pace line in a road race as these riders stretched out single file. Familiar faces have passed by and more still coming.
Well, of all the racers who have a chance here, you have to bet on those with road experience. Men like Henrik Dernier, who's leading right there. He's a great cyclocrosser. He has a bright future as a road racer. Another would be Tomac, who's raced on the road all year long. Gerhard Zdrobalek, he came from a road racing background. These are the kind of guys to look for at the front of this road race style course.
If they can survive the one short technical downhill section that's sandy and dry, indeed most of the rest of the course is suited to a power rider. And here is that tricky downhill section. Derni's in the lead, and they're all lined up 1, 2, 3, 4, single file behind him.
And you can see what the long line does. It creates dust and visibility problems. One guy goes offline, you get the dust in your eyes, you smack into the bushes, and you can see how a tight formation turns into a ragged formation on just that little short section.
They have to follow that little white ribbon around the course, and sometimes it's the only thing that they can see. Derni's still in control up front, but he has certainly not separated himself from any of the contenders, including Rishi Grewal, number 2 there.
There aren't many hills in Berlin, but they've found one of the biggest ones right here, and in the course of 10 laps, it will have an effect, Brian.
The heart rate goes up immediately. These guys put it up to red line and keep it there for the entire 33 miles of racing.
That's Rishi Grewal in the yellow. He's noted for going out very, very fast, but you can tell that today, at this speed on this style course, it's not really that well suited to him. He's in the front group of maybe about 15 guys.
And wearing a rather pained expression.
That was John Tomac first down the hill there, and look at the dust come up. Boy, being at front is the only place to be on this course.
Things are starting to sort themselves out now as the strong riders have moved to the front. The pretenders have begun to slip to the back, and we're getting into the real contention riders in this Mountain Bike World Cup final. 10 riders with a mathematical chance of taking the title. Tinker Juarez from East LA is the man out front right now, a kamikaze pilot of the highest order, and he's getting a chance to showcase his skills on this dusty, dry course, a lot like what he likes to race on.
Well, this almost looks like mountain bike's version of lawn bowling. And there's John Tomac. He's moved into the lead using that road-style power. This is great for Tomac. I'm sure it's too early for him to do calculations about what it will do to his overall chances, but winning the finals, that says a lot in itself.
John Tomac, a long road season, a lot of endurance miles in his legs. This is a relatively short race, but his aerobic threshold must be very, very high, if it's possible for it to be higher than that of the man they call the human lung, Ned Overend, the defending world champion, who's currently in second spot, right ahead of Tinker Juarez, who has slipped back to third.
This is exactly the wrong kind of course for Ned Overend. He'd prefer it to be at high altitude in the Rocky Mountains with tremendous climbs. Peter Hick, well, this is the right kind of course for him. He's a cyclocross racer, and this is the kind of course that they use in the cyclocross event.
No chance to move up on this tight, dusty, single-track descent. Ned Overend there, struggling along in the dirt. Going down this single track, and now coming out the other side, the leaders with a little bit more of a clear field.
And that's Henrik Dernig. He's very comfortable on this course with a great opportunity to move up in the overall series standings.
The man he's chasing is John Tomac, so Dernig, then Tinker Juarez. A few spots back is Overend and his teammate Darrell Price.
And there's David Wiens, the overall leader in the series. He had some problems right at the start, got caught behind the big melee, and he's had to fight his way forward. And he's doing it successfully, but still he's nowhere near contention, nowhere near Tomac, still leading.
John Tomac raging on the downhill part of the course right now, firmly in control and very much in the lead.
And here's the chase group. That is Ned Overend, followed by Tinker Juarez, Gerhard Zdrobalek, Darrell Price.
In a road race, these men might be able to work together to catch John Tomac, but in a mountain bike race, it's every man for himself. In control, riding strongly, and as you said, Tim, more importantly, by himself. No obstacles and no dust, no dirt. Just a clear view of the finish line.
And he's also riding without the drop handlebars that he's used in the past. This is a mountain bike handlebar that he has. You know, Tomac has a rear disc wheel that when it rolls, it makes this very powerful and whooshing sound. And I just think that he listens to that sound and he thinks, boy, I'm going fast. And it boosts him psychologically.
These 5 riders trying to urge one another on, a chasing effort that has amounted to very little at this time. But we are still quite a ways from the finish, and should Tomac falter, any one of several men are ready to step into his place as the leader of this World Cup final.
And all these racers know about Tomac's past. It's a brilliant past, but it's been checkered by a few crucial, unfortunate last lap flat tires. Just when it seemed like Tomac was going to win a race, he'd flat. Well, on this course, there are too many obstacles.
Dave Wiens right here, another one of the pretenders to the throne that John Tomac seems to be ready to mount right now. Wiens, a brilliant mountain bike rider and a veteran on this tour, wearing the leader's jersey of the Mountain Bike World Cup thus far.
He was third in line coming around the corner there. John Tomac playing to the crowd, taking full advantage of the best line down the downhill.
And one by one, the chasing riders trying to pick that same line for themselves.
And you can't ride what you can't see. It's Mike Kluge.
And here's Tomac looking like he's in traffic, but in fact he is passing a lapped rider on the ascent once again with fierce determination going up that climb. And as you mentioned, forsaking the drop handlebars that were his trademark in the last season of mountain bike competition.
He still gets a good position with those bar ends. They're little extenders that come out of the flat mountain bike handlebar, but it keeps him a little bit higher, maybe a little bit more in control, better leverage. And I have to say, Brian, that he looks absolutely fresh. He looks as good as he did at the start of this race.
Well, body language says a lot, and these are men that are looking a little more like defeat than victory at this point, still fighting the good fight, and I guess their best hope right now would be for Tomac to falter or for his equipment to let him down. Zadrobalek, who rode so brilliantly early in the series of the Mountain Bike World Cup, is seeing his season championship slip away.
This is Darrell Price falling a bit off the pace set by his teammate Ned Overend. They're not going forward. Mike Kluge, he's the hometown hero, the best-known mountain biker in Germany and perhaps in Europe. This was meant for him, this course, but he's not in contention.
The five chasing riders trying to sort themselves out for a clear shot at the leader, John Tomac, who is sailing along right now. Still no one in sight behind him, but he has never looked back, Tim.
Well, this is where Tomac can sometimes get into trouble. He's so flamboyant, he's so aggressive, he enjoys the sport so much that sometimes he gets a little bit reckless. And down the descent, Ned Overend. Ooh, a crash.
And Ned Overend almost follows a rider right into the bushes, but decides that the trail is in fact to the right of that tree. Out comes the rider, out comes his bike. It's Gerhard Zadrobalek who's getting back underway on this descent here after a brief excursion into the trees. And here's the man who's out in front. It's a Tomac attack. But will it stick all the way to the finish? He's looking good right now, but stay with us. We'll see what happens when we come back. To a close, Tinker Juarez has shaken himself out of the chasing pack, and he is in hot pursuit of John Tomac.
Tinker Juarez is a great story. He lives in East Los Angeles. He does long mountain rides, long runs. I believe he's run the Los Angeles Marathon 5 times with a best time of 2:30 or thereabouts.
Another former runner, Ned Overend, a former road bike racer too, even finished the Ironman triathlon twice. And some of the European riders who are chasing the Americans right now.
And you can see that the field is split apart some. That's Mike Kluge, the very popular German, still looking for one last burst to put him up on the podium at least, top 3. That would be an accomplishment given his less than outstanding season and poor start here today.
So Kluge, just one of many riders who is chasing the leader, John Tomac, has not faltered, nor has his equipment. He is in the company of riders who are laps down on him, but he is firmly in the lead and has stayed there thus far, never looking back. Tinker Juarez, the closest man to him, is some 2 minutes behind and perhaps closing.
And you can see what this field has gone through trying to stay up with John Tomac. You can have a tough mountain bike course anywhere, Brian, even in a city.
John Tomac looking fresh and clean. Might have even stopped for a jersey change along the way. He looked so good, while the others riding in the dust and dirt looked much worse.
But now the key for Tomac is concentration, focusing on the trail ahead, making sure that he avoids all obstacles. And he can't really pay much attention to those behind. He knows it's his race to win.
Looking at Tinker Juarez there, and now at Zadrobalek. These are men who feel as though their chances of catching John Tomac are waning and waning fast.
And whatever they lose in this race, remember, it'll be doubled, because this is the double points final.
Another German rider.
5th place.
In 5th place, getting the somewhat feeble cheers from the crowd right now. They too must realize that the chances of catching John Tomac are going from slim to nearly none.
This is the tricky part of the course. One place, though, where you can make up time if you're willing to take chances, and these riders have to do it. Tomac, he doesn't. He just has to be steady, and you can see out of the saddle, power, aggressive, forward, all the things that are the sign of a front runner.
As certain as John Tomac's victory seems to be here today, one thing that is not certain by any means is the outcome of the World Cup points. That is going to be a math game based on the finishing places of the riders who are behind him. 10 men had a chance going in. We would have to say that there are just as many who still have a chance of taking the overall mountain bike World Cup title.
And the reason for that, Brian, is that Tomac comes into this race not among the top 3 overall. So even though he can gain tremendous points for winning, he's not assured of the overall victory.
His only chance of taking the title is to win, whereas some of the others can settle, as did Sarah Ballantyne, for runner-up spots and still take the title.
Well, Zadrobalek is now in 3rd place. If he finishes 2nd and Tomac wins, Zadrobalek wins the overall World Cup.
The Mountain Bike World Cup is drawing to a close. Will John Tomac take it?
It's called a stump jumper, and it's the world's most popular mountain bike. But then, who says you need a mountain to ride one?
Is reaching for that title right now. He's going to have to dig deep if he's going to catch John Tomac. And right now, it's Tinker Juarez who's struggling and Tomac who's flying.
Juarez is actually not in contention for the overall World Cup. He doesn't have enough high finishes. But Gerhard Zadrobalek is. But not with troubles like that. He's having trouble keeping his chain on his gears, and he ends up walking. He'll just walk it to a flat point where he can remount and probably resume course.
Now remember, Zadrobalek is currently in 3rd position. He needs a 2nd place finish to assure himself of a title, but it's not going to happen because John Tomac has got the victory in hand. Tinker Juarez is firmly in 2nd spot. Zadrobalek having his troubles, and it looks like Tinker Juarez is going to take the runner-up spot here on the podium today. But John Tomac, in a nail-biter, hangs on because Gerhard Zadrobalek finishes 3rd. And our quick math tells us that John Tomac takes the battle and the war in the Mountain Bike World Cup. There it is, John Tomac with a winning time just over 2 hours and 2 minutes and change ahead of Tinker Juarez in 2nd spot. The Europeans rounding out the top 5.
John Tomac led this race from start to finish. A fantastic performance, a great exclamation point on a long and eventful series.
And the overall standings show John Tomac on top by a single point ahead of Zadrobalek and then a trio of Americans.
From 6th place to 1st in one race, John Tomac, the winner of the World Cup.
Wow, what a finish. John Tomac, in a masterful performance, clinches the Mountain Bike World Cup, Tim, when he had to. The double points final, the last one of the season.
Well, the truth is, Brian, that Tomac was tough all season. If it hadn't been for a couple of flat tires in the season opener and then again in Park City, he might have gone into Berlin as the leader and the prohibitive favorite to win the series. But still, great season.
Now, John Tomac has made no secret of the fact that he intends to redirect his efforts back to mountain biking, which is where he started. But he spent most of this season on the road. Now, if he does go back to mountain biking, he's made a big down payment on the effort that he will make for 92.
Oh, I think so, but Tomac wasn't the only racer who impressed me in this series. Gerhard Zdrobelek, the Austrian, he's a road racer like Tomac, and yet he came cold to mountain biking and performed extremely well. In fact, if he had finished second in the final, as opposed to third, he would have beaten Tomac.
Now that we've seen Europeans like Tim Gould and Thomas Frischknecht, cyclocross specialists, coming to mountain biking, we've seen road riders like Zdrobelek, but what do the Europeans have to do, Tim, to make that next step, to take a title?
Well, they have to do better on the Rocky Mountain single-track courses at high altitude, and that's a tough nut to crack because the Americans have more experience there. A lot of them live at high altitude, and they have just that feeling of success that comes from so many years of doing better than the Europeans. So there's no easy answer, except for maybe moving to the States and spending a lot of time there and just trying.
Let's take another quick look, if we can, at the women's division. Now, Sarah Ballantyne, who has really defined women's mountain bike racing for many years, lost the World Championship title to Julie Furtado last year, but came back to take the World Cup, a measure of revenge.
Absolutely revenge. I think that in the middle of summer, Ballantyne was probably thinking that she'd never beat Julie Furtado again because Furtado won 4 of the first 5 World Cups. But Ballantyne is a fighter, and she just hung in to the final, and she pounced, and that was a big upset.
Now, the World Cup was in its inaugural season this year, and Tim, I guess if we have to look back and try to summarize the entire series, what would that be in a few phrases or words?
I would say solid organization, excellent competition, a few wrinkles, and a lot of promise for the future.
And the future is that the World Cup will return for 1992, and probably with a few changes. The riders and some of the organizers have mentioned some of those. Tim, what might they be?
Well, number one, what about that double points final? I think that a lot of racers, John Tomac and Sarah Ballantyne excluded, would like to see that format changed, not have so much weight on one race, particularly a flat race. And of course, in 1992, there are going to be some changes. More of the races are going to be in the United States. The finals, which probably won't be double points, are going to be in Vail, Colorado.
Well, we've had an exciting season in the World Cup competition. We hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have. For Tim Blumenthal, I'm Brian Drebber. Thanks for joining us. Tonight.